The only good point is a dead point.
These little people are backtracking. We don't support Hezbollah, Hamas. Give me a break.
I'm Jewish myself, and I fully support Kneecap's freedom of speech. They should be able to say whatever that they want, but freedom of speech doesn't also mean freedom from consequence.
I think this 100% clout chasing is no different than all the other artists, the Macklemores and all these other people. We're playing a game as if the media and the news has all been on Israel's side. That's just not what I see.
We have seen a consistent blurring of the lines between free speech and the promotion of terror.
A rap group's lyrics about genocide are causing more outrage than the genocide itself. Burning entire families in tents. That is violent and aggressive. Killing children on a daily basis.
Your lot did that to Jews.
Irish rappers Kneecap are the darlings of social media with a slew of awards and celebrity fans. But it's their firebrand politics currently dominating global headlines. A recent performance at Coachella was accompanied by big screen projections condemning what the band called Israeli war crimes and genocide in Gaza. They were dropped by their US visa sponsor, forcing them to cancel several US tour dates, and now under fire with some outrageous statements in past performances.
They're Tories. The only good Tory is a dead Tory. Kill everyone.
Well, Kneecap have apologised and clarified that it does not support Hamas or Hezbollah, even though we literally just heard them shouting up Hamas and up Hezbollah, which is a clear sign of public support. But more high-profile shows have been cancelled, and British MPs lined up this week to demand that they're dropped from the upcoming Glastonbury Festival this summer. The Conservative leader says they should be prosecuted. Well, since nobody's defending their comments, including the band themselves, the question is whether they should be cancelled. They are, after all, following a very long line of performative provocateurs and filling venues with lots of strange people who like them. Here to discuss all this is hip-hop commentator, host of Vlad TV, DJ Vlad, the American Israel rapper Nissim Black, journalist Ahmed Eldin, who is of Palestinian descent, and, well, great to see Sharon. Sharon, my old friend from America's Got Talent. We go back a long way. Let me start with you, Sharon, because you went to Coachella and you wrote this on X. Were you there?
I wasn't there. I just I saw their performance.
Got it.
That was enough.
So you saw the performance and you tweeted this on X. The band openly supports terrorist organisations after witnessing their performance during the first weekend. Allowing them to perform again the following weekend suggests support of their rhetoric and a lack of due diligence. This behaviour raises concerns about the appropriateness of their participation in such a festival and shows they are booked to play in the USA. And it does seem extraordinary, Sharon, when you see the clip of them literally shrieking up Hamas and up Hezbollah, which is a clear public expression of support in front of thousands of people about where their allegiance lies, which is to terrorist groups. It's unbelievable to me that after that hadn't emerged and they were free to play in Coachella.
Oh, please, don't get me started. And now these little people are backtracking. We don't support Hezbollah, Hamas. Give me a break. They were chanting it at the festival. And my whole stance is, have your own belief politically. Couldn't give a damn what you believe in. But don't bring it to a music festival where there's peace. Music unites people. Music doesn't separate people. And as far as their manager, is he here?
No, he bottled it. He was supposed to come on, but he's bottled it, the manager.
Well, I think he did himself a favour because you can tell there's not much out there. But anyway, it's just all insane that this should be allowed to continue where there are young people, okay, drinking, doing whatever they want to do. It's their business, but don't try and incite violence with the fist, with their attitude. Their whole attitude is one of anger. It's not of peace. It's not trying to, put your point across. And they should follow the masters who are U2. Bono goes on, he talks about Palestine. He does it in peace. He's pro-Palestine. That's his opinion, Bono. God bless him. But he does it in such a way that it doesn't incite violence from a crowd. And if anybody knows about festival crowds, it's me.
Yeah.
My entire life. And so, it's just ignorance. They're trying to sell more of their music. It's part of it, that's the thing.
And they're also...
sure, they've got very strong... Go on.
Well, as I say, I'm going to come to what they said about the members of Parliament in the UK. When they said, go and kill your local MP, 2 British members of Parliament have actually been murdered in the last 10 years.
I know.
1 woman, 1 man. And it's a despicable thing to say. Anyway, never mind before we get to their open support for Hamas and Hezbollah. What really irked me was their long statement they put out yesterday. They want you to believe words are more harmful than genocide. Well, yeah, actually, if you tell people to go and murder MPs, that is actually despicably harmful rhetoric. Secondly, say, let us be unequivocal. We do not and have never supported Hamas or Hezbollah. We condemn all attacks on civilians always. It's never okay. That is a complete lie. They literally, in November 2024, so literally, 4 months ago, in Kentish Town, in London, they were seen chanting, up Hamas, up Hezbollah. So, Sharon, apart from anything else, they're just liars. And they're lying to now try and save their careers, because America are not going to let them back in with this footage out there.
And what a great decision. There's enough problems. We don't need in America this coming in. They're uneducated. When was the last time they went to the Middle East? They're using cliche slogans. Nothing they are saying is original. They're not bringing anything to the table. Nothing except anger.
Yeah.
That's what they're bringing. Their manager had the audacity to say that people were thanking them for bringing this to their attention.
Yeah.
Now, you'd have to be deaf, dumb or blind, living in America, not know what's going on in the Middle East.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we've got a clip of that manager.
Even if you're not interested.
Yeah, well, let's play a clip from that manager of Kneecap, Daniel Lambert. He appeared on Irish television last night, actually, to talk about this.
I think the first thing I'd like to say, and I'll address those now, is that the last few days have been very challenging. And to the massive credit of the 3 lads, and it's something that hasn't been said, at no point have they had any concern for their own income, for their own careers, for their own futures. And at every point, they have the absolute conviction that they are doing the right thing and they stand on the right side of history. And that should be said. In terms of this, you said a video emerged. A video didn't emerge. There was a concerted campaign emanating from the US to analyse every single thing that Kneecap have ever said in 7 years of performances. They've gigged to hundreds of thousands of people in about 20 countries, hundreds of gigs. And why this happened, and you mentioned at the intro, is around what they said at Coachella. And what they said at Coachella was the right thing to say. It's something that we've said at Leeds Reading, at Glastonbury. We've said it in Dublin and Belfast. And what it is a message aimed at governments who are enabling a genocide in Gaza. And what really, really scared the state of Israel and what led to this campaign is the reaction of young people in America. If you were to look at dozens of comedians globally, and you were to take the script of their comedy act and remove six words from a comedy act and then lay it out in a headline and say that this was dangerous, you could do that to dozens of people. This was a concerted campaign, and the aim of this campaign is really important. It's not about Kneecap. This has nothing to do with Kneecap or something that Kneecap may or may not have said. And it's solely about deplatforming artists. It's about telling the next young band, both through the music industry and through the political class, that you cannot speak about Palestine.
Now, DJ Vlad, it seems to me he's conflating 2 issues there. They're perfectly entitled to have their view on what is going on in Gaza. I've expressed my own view many times. My view has evolved over the period of the war. Everyone's entitled to their view. That's the whole point of free speech, not least in America with the First Amendment protection, of course. But that's not what they were found to have done. They were actively, publicly supporting terrorist organisations, prescribed terror organisations, who, if you tried to say you did that, on a visa application form to get into the United States, you would be barred from coming in. So to me, it's not really a free speech issue. Once you get into publicly supporting Hamas and Hezbollah after October the 7th in particular, when you're blatantly supporting terrorism, why is that a free speech issue if you then get brought to book for it? Now, I may be about to shock you with this, but tallow is an exceptional moisturiser. The oil in our skin shares many of the same fatty acids as tallow, making it nearly impossible to beat. You can have silky soft skin, like me, with an all-natural alternative. It has no fillers, and it's much more than just a moisturiser. It can replace lotion, night cream, wrinkle cream, Neosporin, and much more. It's powerful enough to heal your skin, but it's safe enough to spread on your toast. And if you're looking for natural solutions, what about your toothpaste? VanMan's Mint Bone Tooth Powder is packed with all the minerals and the nutrients needed to remineralize teeth. They use zero fluoride, SLS, glycerin, and foaming agents. The aim for all of VanMan Company's products is to be edible, especially those which are literally used in your mouth. Go to vanman.shop/Piers and use code Piers, that's Piers, for 10% off. That's vanman.shop/Piers and use code Piers for 10% off.
Well, look, I'm Jewish myself, and I fully support Kneecap's freedom of speech. They should be able to say whatever that they want, but freedom of speech doesn't also mean freedom from consequence.
Right.
So ultimately, if they want to say what they say, they need to deal with the consequences of what they say. And if there's certain countries or venues that don't agree with their stance, then that's the consequences that they'll have to deal with. They also posted a picture on X of a Star of David with a swastika intertwined in it. So ultimately, they can't be canceled everywhere. They have fans. Maybe when Kanye goes on tour, they could open up for him. But ultimately, there's going to be certain venues that just disagree with their stance, and the support of Hamas and terrorist organizations and so forth goes along with that. Ultimately, I don't always agree with what Israel has said. I said in the whole war, I feel that both sides have faults in them. But ultimately, if you want to take a pro-terrorist stance, if you want to take a pro-Nazi stance, just deal with the consequences. Don't backtrack after the fact.
Yeah. Ahmed Eldin, you're a Palestinian commentator. I've had a lot of Palestinian guests on this show since October the 7th. We've had some very lively, passionate debates, and I will always platform people to say what they want to say. But I always ask most of the guests I've had on, do they condemn Hamas? It's become a sort of running thing, which people have mocked me for. But the reason I ask it is I think if you don't condemn what Hamas did on October the 7th, I find it very hard to stomach anything you then want to say about anything else, because it should be condemned by everybody. Here, you have a group from Ireland who are publicly endorsing Hamas post-October the 7th. Why shouldn't people be outraged by that?
Well, Piers, I appreciate the way you framed the question, but I want to take a moment to, in Britain today, a rap group's lyrics about genocide are causing more outrage than the genocide itself. I mean, Sharon talks about Kneecap inciting violence with a fist, but we're completely, so far, 10 minutes into the segment, ignoring the actual extreme violence Israel is using in Gaza every single day, burning entire families in tents. That is violent and aggressive, killing children on a daily basis.
Your lot did that to Jews. You're talking about what the Palestinians did to the Jews, are you?
Piers, Kneecap is under investigation, not because they incited violence, but because they dared to do what I just did, call out Israel's mass killing of children, its military occupation. And in other words, they're giving voice to a generation.
Well, hang on, okay, but hang on.
Gaslit,
hang on a second.
Hang on,
Ahmed, hang on, Sharon. Let me ask Ahmed one question. Would you then endorse the sentence, up Hamas, up Hezbollah? Do you believe that is okay?
I don't know. I wonder, when you ask me this, if I were to flip it to you or Sharon, would you support Hail Israel or support Israel when Israel is murdering children very violently on a daily basis?
I haven't said that anyway.
Hezbollah is killing
I'm asking
children.
you the same question you
Hezbollah,
asked
not
me,
Israelis.
Piers. Like,
No, Ahmed, here's my point.
do I think that if your question is, if your question is, do I think that the people in Gaza have a right to resist genocide, ethnic cleansing, and occupation? Yes, but Piers.
No, well, hang on. Well, that's interesting.
Well,
that's interesting, Ahmed. Let me ask you just to clarify that. Does that mean you think that October the 7th was an act of resistance and therefore justified?
Well, I don't know. What was October 8th?
Well, let me ask you about October the 7th. Don't play whataboutery. Just answer directly.
But Piers, I'm not. Why are we talking about October the 7th? I thought I was here to talk about Kneecap. Can I just? I'm not.
Because you're the one who decided to move it, with respect to you, into a wider context about whether people would condemn what Israel has done. So I'm just saying to you, Ahmed, I'm just saying to you, would you condemn what Hamas did on October the 7th or not?
Of course I would condemn the killing of innocent civilians, but that's not what we're here to talk about.
Right.
I mean, Piers, what Britain's
You literally just talked about it.
But Piers, what is Britain's message to its youth? Let's talk about that. If you speak out against a genocidal regime, if you condemn it, they're going to threaten you, censor you, and jail you. But if you participate in genocide, what? You can still perform it.
I have no problem with people criticising Israel's government for the way they've executed this war. I've done it myself many times. That is free speech. That's what free speech is about. Where I have a problem, no, Ahmed, where I have a problem, and you're trying to dive around this, the reason that Kneecap are in trouble has got nothing to do with them just criticising Israel, and got everything to do with the clips that came out after their Coachella performance, when people discovered that only in November, 4 months ago, they chanted "Up Hamas, Up Hezbollah," supporting
whether I support that or not, Piers, what I'm saying is irrelevant to the discussion. I think we can agree on this.
It's not irrelevant. It's obviously completely irrelevant to the discussion.
No, it's not. Let me tell you why it's not. Let me just give me a chance.
It's the whole point of a discussion.
If you just wouldn't interrupt me the way you let Sharon talk for a little bit. I mean, the UK media and political class have spent 72 hours scrambling not to condemn Israel's starvation siege, not to prevent weapons from reaching a government that is committing genocide, that is bombing children, killing them daily, ripping them to shreds, and it's all being documented. But they're trying to ban a band from festivals, from Spotify. And what have they chosen to ignore? I mean, Israel has now blocked every single truck of food, water, fuel, and medicine from entering Gaza for 60 days. The US, like many world powers, are enabling the violation of international law, aggression, violence, daily violence that is unprecedented, according to not just NGOs. I mean, they're ignoring you.
All right, but just to be clear, hang on, you can't just keep talking, Ahmed, with respect. I hear you. You made your point forcefully. But just to be clear then, you do not have a problem with what Kneecap said in relation to Up Hamas, Up Hezbollah. Is that your position? From tariffs to market turmoil, things are looking pretty rough out there. Well, our sponsor, American Hartford Gold, has an answer. There are many new threats to financial stability, a full-blown trade war, a fluctuating stock market, an uncertain bond market, stubborn inflation, and colossal national debt. If you're still relying solely on paper assets, you could be heading straight into the storm. So what is the solution? Well, a simple and tested one is to get out of the chaos and invest in something real. Physical gold and silver. American Hartford Gold is a company you can trust. They've got an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and a proven reputation for making the process simple, safe, and smart. You can have gold and silver delivered directly to your doorstep or placed into a gold IRA with major tax advantages. Mention my name, Piers, for up to $15,000 in free silver on your first purchase. Call 866-692-2474 or text Piers, that's P-I-E-R-S, to 65532 or follow the link below.
My position is I don't have a problem with them supporting anyone they want to support because that's under free speech protected.
With no accountability.
What about Israel's accountability? You want us to
stop playing whataboutery. I'm asking you specifically.
Piers, I am here as a guest, as a journalist, as someone who is a former professor at Columbia. There are people being jailed and disappeared off the streets for speech. They are being held accountable in a way that Israel has managed to evade.
Well, actually, they're being held accountable.
Pierce, with all due respect,
they're actually being
Pierce.
held accountable for harassing Jewish students, barricading them into rooms, making sure they couldn't attend, making sure they couldn't go to lectures.
Pierce,
Sorry, they were harassing the Jewish students.
Do you think that it's right to hold those people accountable and yet not hold Israeli leaders who have an ICC?
No, if you want to go after Israeli leaders, if you want to go after Israeli leaders,
or Israeli soldiers that are committing war crimes and war crimes against
I have called for Netanyahu.
Can I ask you a question?
Ahmed, no, you can't. I'm asking the questions. I'm asking the questions. Ahmed,
it is about framing.
I'm asking the questions. It's my show. That's how it works. I've called for Netanyahu to go. I think there are some right-wing headbangers in his cabinet who should go too. I think the war has gone on way too long. I think the amount of civilian death is unacceptable. I think of all these things. I say them publicly on a regular basis, okay? But I'm afraid that the debate here is about whether this band should be allowed to continue performing in America where they are publicly supporting terror groups. And at the moment, you don't want to answer that. All you want to do is keep saying, but what about the Israelis?
Give me a chance. The violent rhetoric can be problematic, but it is far less problematic than the violence we are witnessing every day. And so if we're here to talk about whether Kneecap should be held accountable, I'm simply positing, is it more of a priority for any society, any civilized society?
All right, well, it's a point of view.
Hold people accountable.
Let me bring in. All right, let me bring in the other guest.
Violent or for the daily murder of children.
You made the point and you made it forcefully, and I respect that. That's fine. Let me bring in Nissim Black. You're an Orthodox Jew. You're a rapper. What do you feel about this?
I feel, first off, Piers, I should say, I don't know how qualified, since I've only been a resident white colonizer for the last 9 years or so. But I think this 100% clout chasing is no different than all the other artists, the Macklemores and all these other people who are trying to look. We're playing a game as if, I don't know what everybody else has been watching, but we're playing a game as if the media and the news has all been on Israel's side and everything's backing Israel. That's just not what I see personally. So what's actually going on is that it's more popular to support Hamas, it's more popular to support all these terrorist groups. You're not really sacrificing anything. You're just only going into what the rest of the crowd is. So all of this is garbage. These guys definitely, and here's a very important point. When people say something bad about another people or group, usually you could get a laugh or two after that. When Jews start getting talked about, it leads to actionable items, violence, not allowing students to go into their class. It leads to a rise, a crazy rise in statistically in anti-Semitism inside of America. So once you say something about this particular group, it's very interesting how something actually starts to happen, as opposed to when other people make all different type of things, the stereotypical things about other groups. And when it's said about Jews, then all of a sudden there's some actual violence that happens. So this is 100% clout chasing. There are some 50-odd conflicts that's going on in the world, even more than that, I think, that the Americans are reporting. Why is this one on every single airway? Everybody's talking about this particular one.
Because it's a genocide.
0.2. No, listen, way more. This is a genocide compared to what happened in Syria? Is this a genocide compared to what's happening in Yemen?
Syria was not a genocide. There's a specific definition of genocide.
Because I'm black and I'm Jewish. I could say this. Hold on, Ahmed. I could say this. We watched this 5 years ago with the Black Lives Matter movement. Look at how the world was in chaos, right? Over white on black violence, which these were very, very small amount of cases, but black on black violence, nobody cared. So 500,000 Arabs can die at the hands of other Arabs. And by the way, the number one leading murder of Arabs are Arabs. Just to put that out there.
I'm sorry, as an Arab who is Palestinian, I need to just say, I know. I need to just say, you're comparing.
And then all of a sudden, this is what it is.
The broad stroke that you're using, with all due respect, to talk about Arabs as if Syrians and what's happening in Palestine, what happened in Syria was a civil war. What's happening in Palestine is colonization, is land grabs, is annexation, is ethnic cleansing, and it's been happening for decades. That has not been happening in Syria for decades. What happened and what we're discussing did not start on October 7th. Piers, the British media, Piers, the British media is currently dissecting these videos, the ones that, completely ignoring Israeli snipers blowing out children. I mean, there was a 250-page UN report documenting how Israel's elite sharpshooters deliberately targeted children, medics, journalists, and continue to do
and
so.
Presumably, though, presumably, all right, okay, Ahmed, let me ask you this. Ahmed, no, stop talking for a moment, Ahmed. Let me just ask you, Ahmed, would you like to directly tell Hamas right now to release all the Israeli hostages?
No, I wouldn't.
Of course. So there's a massive double standard at the heart of your debate. There's a massive double standard. You don't care how Jewish people get treated. You only care how Palestinians get treated. If babies and Holocaust survivors get kidnapped and taken into hellhole tunnels, you don't care. You don't care, do you?
Piers, did you bring me on to give Hamas political advice? Or did you give me, because what I would say to you, if you think that it's wrong for me not to suggest to Hamas that they should release the hostages, are you aware there are thousands and thousands of hostages, including children,
I'm aware of,
being held in Israeli prisons, being raped,
what I'm aware of is that you have an absolute inability. Ahmed, with respect to you, you have an absolute, Ahmed, with respect, you have a chronic inability to answer any straightforward question without immediately playing whataboutery. But what you've hang on.
Israel is doing to the people in Gaza cannot be compared to what Kneecap said on stage.
Stop talking. What you revealed in your last answer when you said you would not tell Hamas to release the hostages was very telling. And everyone watching will find that very telling.
I think they should
In other
release
words,
the hostages
you don't care actually about anything Hamas
hostages.
has done to those Israelis and Jews.
No, I think what Hamas has done is very...
You can have that position,
but
you've revealed that position.
You want to bring me here to do that? Well done.
You know what? I brought you here to debate Kneecap. All you've done is say I shouldn't be talking about a ban. Let me bring in...
I want to talk about
I'm bringing another guest now.
I find it so strange.
I know you do. You want to just keep talking and run the entire debate. That's fine. We're not doing that. I want to bring in Lee Trink, who's a former president of Capitol Records. Lee, thank you for joining me. You read a very powerful piece in the wake of all this called Setting the Stage for Hate, Kneecap and Coachella's Collapse of Conscience. And in it you wrote, let's be clear, this isn't about artistic freedom. I'm a First Amendment near absolutist. It's about enabling hate speech. So just explain why you reached that conclusion.
Well, thanks for having me on. You know, first of all, the First Amendment. So I'm a First Amendment absolutist. It has nothing to do with freedom of expression. What the First Amendment covers is it guarantees free speech from government censorship, but the U.S. immigration law it has really strict conditions on work visas. And when Kneecap has had a consistent history of glorifying Hamas and Hezbollah, supporting them, promoting them from the stage, they disqualify themselves from the ability to have a work visa. When you know, I directed that to the owners of Coachella, and for me, the problem there was, you know, for decades, they carefully curated this incredible brand. And what they did was, and you know, we gave them the heads up. They had the heads up that Kneecap has had these persistent problems, and they let them into their sacred space. My commentary about them is not about the expression of what they did on stage. Now, I disagree vehemently. I think it's a categorical lie what they say about genocide. What Ahmed said about genocide is categorically
it's an observable fact that is documented.
It's not.
And that multiple NGOs have said, including the ICJ, found Israel many months ago.
Ahmed, let him speak, please.
Since October 7th. But anyway, my point is,
you don't interrupt anyone else except for me.
You've done more talking than everybody else put together, Ahmed. So allow people to speak.
Did you interrupt anyone?
Please stop talking, Ahmed. I will bring you back in if you just respectfully allow people to finish their point.
Coachella has the ability to say, we're not going to allow a band that stands for everything that is against the principles of Coachella, the principles of America, of what has allowed them to build this incredible festival brand. And they are permitted to say, sorry, those violate our ideals, our principles. That's Coachella's right to do that. I think they made an egregious mistake by ignoring Kneecap's persistent history in glorifying extremism and terror. And that's they should have stopped that. They didn't. And it was important for me to highlight that, because I think one of the big problems that's happened here is we have seen a consistent blurring of the lines between free speech and the promotion of terror. We see it with Kneecap, right? You know, it's very convenient for Ahmed to talk about what he's saying, and it's only about free speech, but it's not. They cross the line into promoting terror. And that same conflation of the issue has happened in our college campuses. And we are normalizing that, crossing that threshold over free speech we are normalizing the promotion of terror. And we are masking that, we are masking that we're pretending that is a free speech issue, and that's not. Free speech has a number of boundaries where we say it crosses that threshold, and they've passed it here.
And one of them is inciting hatred and violence. Sharon, you know, the irony of all this is that one of the most egregious things that Hamas did on October the 7th, where 3,000 of their terrorists poured over the border into Israel and basically killed every Jewish person they could find and get their hands on, is that one of the worst massacres they committed, in fact, the worst massacre in terms of total people who were killed, was the music festival. And you know, there were young people enjoying a music festival. I mean, the irony of a band from Ireland, right, going to Coachella, one of the world's most famous music festivals, with their track record of only 4 months ago saying, "Up Hamas." In other words, we support the group that destroyed young people's lives at a music festival like this. I found that one of the most shocking things about this, and I find their lying, their weaselly statement afterwards. You know, apologising to the Amos and Cox families, who are the families of the British members of Parliament who were assassinated. We never intended to cause you hurt. Really? You literally told your crowd to go and murder their MP. Right, the only good Tory is a dead Tory was one of their other statements. And then said we never, ever supported Hamas, when we literally have just watched the clip of them supporting Hamas. And then going to a music festival, knowing you support the terror group who destroyed music festival goers' lives.
It's the type of gaslighting we've been experiencing.
I blame Coachella. Coachella were warned. I know several people that sent letters way before, a month ago, and they ignored everybody. Everybody they ignored, and they destroyed something that they built for years that was beautiful, that was wonderful. People from all over the world would go and congregate, and they have destroyed it with one band. They have destroyed it because that band is full of hate, ignorance. They don't know all the facts. They cliche, you know, those cliche headlines. I'm surprised they didn't use From the River to the Sea, you know, and the genocide. It's all cliche.
Should they be banned from Glastonbury, Sharon?
Oh my God, I pray that they are. And if they're not, shame on Glastonbury, because Glastonbury, again, is for peace. It's just, you know, idyllic for people who love music. And for it to be destroyed with one pathetic band that are full of hate is a disgrace. They were talking this is about the wrong platform to do this. And as I said before, have your political beliefs. Doesn't change my world what you believe. Won't change what I feel inside. But not at a music festival. Wrong. The promoters are wrong. Everybody was wrong to allow this. The agents, how could you be an agent and represent this? How could you?
Yeah, well, let me ask
great music.
Yeah, I agree. Let me ask DJ Vlad, just finally, where does this leave Kneecap? I mean, they've never been involved in a firestorm like this. Everything they've ever said is now being scoured over by people examining video footage, and so I'm sure more stuff will come out because they've obviously been doing this for years. Are they finished as a band, or will there be a kind of undercurrent of support for them from, you know, what many would see as similarly misguided young people who might go along with this?
No, I don't think they're finished at all. Ultimately, this is the most promotion they've ever gotten in their lives. I've never heard of Kneecap up until
no, I hadn't either. No,
I haven't. And they're definitely not canceled. They're not finished. They're going to be banned from certain places, but there's certain people that do agree with them, and they'll get a lot of support from those places as well. And like I said, I mean, you have freedom of speech, but not freedom from consequences. And ultimately, they're going to continue to do what they do to their core fan base, just like Kanye is continuing to do what he does. Trump continues to do what he does, and so forth. And I support their right to say what it is that they say. I support, I respect what Ahmed, that's your name, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Ahmed, I support your point of view as well. I've publicly been on the Breakfast Club and other platforms and said that both parties, both Israel and Palestine, have faults in the way that they've handled this. But ultimately,
yeah, of course.
Yes.
We just don't need to allow this in our country. We don't need to give a visa to people. Sorry.
I'm
just saying. They may have the ability to say what they want and the freedom to say it, but we in America, we don't have to grant somebody access to bring their hateful ideology and import it into our country. Let them take that, leave it in Ireland, go somewhere else, go to Gaza. How about this? Why don't they do a show in Gaza and tell me how that goes on, or go to the West Bank and tell me how well received they are. We don't need to import their hate into our country, and the administration is well within their right to revoke a visa, to bar them from entry into this country.
Yeah, and let me ask. I agree. And let me ask Ahmed one question, which is, if this was an Israeli group, right, who were chanting similar stuff about Palestinians, do you think they'd be allowed to perform in Gaza?
No.
Exactly. So why should this lot be allowed to perform? So why should this lot be allowed to perform in countries where they're supporting a prescribed terror group and that country opposes it?
That's a fair question. I mean, there's a lot of hateful rhetoric coming from, Israeli settlers, Israeli ministers, Israeli leaders, and then they're paraded and given a red carpet arrival in Washington, D.C. and London when they're calling for the death of Arabs.
Most pro-Palestinians, he has no ability to look in the mirror and see what is the hate.
Can I just be given the same 2 minutes to make some points without any accusations or interruptions?
Given you've interrupted everybody else, it's a bit rich, but yes, go on.
No, it's a bit rich. Okay, just give me a minute. The British media, as I said earlier, is currently dissecting these videos of Kneecap, okay, while completely ignoring the actual kneecaps of Palestinians that Israeli snipers have been shooting.
You've made that point.
That's not their jurisdiction.
You've made that point.
I just got tense. I was going to say, the point is that a soldier is bragging on social media about shooting 42 kneecaps. Real kneecaps. Did we have a segment about that soldier and the hatred?
Yeah, you know what? I've done probably, Ahmed, you know the irony of this? I've done more coverage of the Israel-Hamas war and had more people on from both sides than any other show in the world. Right, so the idea I haven't covered stuff that's negative to Israel is bullshit.
If I condemn Hamas,
do you?
But I'm saying
it might be bullshit. But what's also bullshit?
Do you condemn Hamas or not?
Make a point.
Do you condemn Hamas?
Honestly, if you don't want me to talk, you're going to interrupt.
Do you condemn Hamas? Yes or no?
He won't do it. Piers, here's the
Hang on. I'm giving him the chance to respond. Ahmed, do you condemn Hamas? Yes or no?
Piers.
Do you or not?
Do you condemn Israel?
Why don't you answer my question?
Do you condemn genocide?
Can you answer my question?
Do you condemn ethnic cleansing?
Will you answer my question?
Do you condemn assassinating children?
Will you answer my question?
Do you condemn torturing Palestinian prisoners? Systematically?
All right, I'm going to leave it there. The viewers can make their own minds up about somebody who just won't bring himself to condemn Hamas. That's fine. I can condemn Hamas and I can condemn Netanyahu.
Well, at least it's clear to the viewers why you brought me here, to ask me this
You're not intellectually honest, Ahmed.
Try to make it seem as if I'm a terrorist because I
never called you a terrorist. I say, do you condemn Hamas?
Not you, but the rest of the guests did. Your guests did.
All right. Well, if you refuse to condemn them, people can draw their own conclusions.
Well, yeah, and if you refuse, like your guests, to condemn the murder of children, they can also draw their own conclusions.
Okay, I'm going to leave it there. It's a very spirited debate.
Hezbollah stepped outside into the desert. Where are they now? Exactly. Hamas is hiding behind people.
Yeah.
That's why we're still talking about them today. Hezbollah was a much
What
bigger
terrifies the political class isn't Kneecap, it's accountability. We want to hold Kneecap accountable for words, but
you know what? I want to hold everybody accountable, Ahmed. I want to hold Hamas accountable. I want to hold the Israeli government accountable where they commit war crimes. Where they commit war crimes. I want to hold Kneecap accountable. I want to hold everybody accountable. I want to hold all 5 of you panelists accountable. I want to hold myself accountable. I'm checking out. It's nearly 10 o'clock at night, and I'm done with this. Thank you all very much. Lovely to see you, Sharon.
Victory and peace to all.
Love you.
Piers Morgan Uncensored is proudly independent. The only boss around here is me. If you enjoy our show, we ask for only one simple thing. Hit subscribe on YouTube and follow Piers Morgan Uncensored on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And in return, we will continue our mission to inform, irritate and entertain. And we'll do it all for free. Independent, uncensored media has never been more critical, and we couldn't do it without you.